It's been great. These first couple that we've done so far, we started off with the why and the goal setting, and now we moved into visualization last week, which is awesome. And Ronnie and I, we've been learning so much from Andy and what he's brought to the table with all this, the mental side of the game and whatnot. But tonight we're going to focus on breathing, and it's really neat the power of breathing that it brings into an athlete's life, into everyday life.
So diaphragmatic breathing, what it is it's when you slow your breathing down, and you use your belly, and you also contract the diaphragm, or use your diaphragm to do it. And the diaphragm is a muscle that's between your thoracic cavity and your abdominal cavity. So if you look at this image right here, yeah, the pink part lit up, that's going to be where your diaphragm is. It's just underneath your lungs. And so when you use this muscle to breathe, then you're using your diaphragm. And so this is essentially what diaphragmatic breathing is using that muscle and slowing your breathing way down. So yeah, Adam.
No, I was just going to ask Ronnie, like before, like we even started talking with Andy, I knew what diaphragmatic breathing was, but I didn't really know how to do it. And Ronnie, you probably felt the same way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I had no idea what it was, The only thing that I'd ever learned about breathing were a couple of things, but, as a coach, reading a lot of Navy SEALs books, and when they talked about the 4x4. So I would use that, and I still use that with players today, but no idea what this diaphragmatic breathing was. So it's been awesome just to learn about it. It can be very beneficial.
Definitely. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about why some players don't use diaphragmatic breathing. I think that's a great photo we got there. So I think some people, they don't understand the concept. They don't know how. They've never been taught. They don't know, or they don't think they're good at it, or they've tried it once with no results. I know, Ronnie, you've worked with a lot of youth players. What's your experience with this?
I think players do it, but I don't think they're aware of it. And I always use the example of watching the playoffs and watching TV, and these guys are in these stressful situations, and they take a deep breath. And I think the reason being is there's just not awareness or knowledge of how to do it. And again, I think everybody does do it. Every player does it, just inadvertently. But being able to have the knowledge to control it and use it to enhance the game, I think is really powerful.
Yes, definitely. So let's talk a little bit about why it's so useful. We're going to talk about some really interesting the science behind diaphragmatic breathing and what's actually happening in your body when you engage in the diaphragm to breathe. And so first thing that I like to talk about is that your breathing controls your heart rate. Now, I didn't really understand this till about 10 years ago when I took a course in college, and it was a breathing course. And for the final of that class, so my last test was that I had to breathe diaphragmatically for an hour and a half, and I had to drop my resting heart rate 10 beats below my resting heart rate. So at first, when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, there's no way," because at the time, I was in pretty good shape. I was around 55 to 60 beats per minute as my resting heart rate. So I didn't think I could drop it below, like 10 beats below that. So every day I went to class, and my professor would have us sit up straight. We wouldn't cross our legs or arms, and we relaxed and breathed. And so towards the end of my final on the last day, my resting heart rate, or my heart rate during that, after doing this breathing for an hour and a half, was 20 beats below my resting heart rate. And my inhale was about 45 seconds, and my exhale was about 45 seconds, so the same. So I literally took my heart rate, which was resting around 60 beats per minute, and dropped it to around 40 beats per minute. And so for me, this was a game changer, right? I had the ability to change my heart. I could control my heart rate. And before that, I never thought that was possible. So why is this so important? Because in baseball, there's a lot of stress, right? Like when there's a lot on the line, when you're the one who's going up to bat, that either you get a hit and then win the game or you don't, there's a lot on the line. And so what happens is our body goes into this like fight or flight type situations. And so we want to avoid that through diaphragmatic breathing. And we're going to get into all that coming up here. So what we're going to do is watch this video. It's a Army sniper, and they put him in this hot box that gets 130 degrees, and they ask him to shoot. They keep him there for so many minutes till he's like just feeling the pressure of the heat. And so as you watch the video, I want you to answer this question. What benefits did the Army sniper experience from diaphragmatic breathing? Okay, so let's go ahead and watch the video.
1, fire.
The shot is dead on, an easy distance for a sniper. But was it between heartbeats?
Well, you actually did it. And our rhythm shows smack between heartbeats, like you had it perfectly timed. And
I was able to keep my heart rate under control by relaxing, diaphragmatic breathing, clearing your mind, thinking about nothing but.
In the 130-degree coffin, Mike's heart beats 135 times per minute. With each beat, a surge of blood fills the vessels. As the blood reaches the trigger finger, it swells with each pulse. This pulse is enough movement to cause a slight deviation in the sniper's shot, making the difference between a direct hit or a missed target. To pull off an accurate shot, Mike must slow down his heart rate. First, he decreases his respiratory rate by taking extended full diaphragmatic breaths. He gradually reduces his breathing from 18 breaths per minute to approximately 6. Within a few minutes, he lowers his heart rate to 84 beats per minute. This creates more time to shoot between heartbeats. Timing is everything. Immediately after Mike feels his heartbeat reverberate off the surface he's resting on, he pulls the trigger.
All right, thank you, Adam. So what were the benefits that he experienced, right? He was able to control his heart rate. And with this, he was able to control his physiology. So what his body was doing, because in the environment that he was in, it's really difficult to control your body because it wants to do something that's not going to help him in that situation. So much like in baseball, when you feel a lot of pressure because of the way that you're thinking, it changes your heart rate, and then you have all these physiological effects. So the breathing will help you eliminate those physiological effects of stress. But it's so much more than that. So there's something called the vagus nerve that is activated when you do this style of breathing, this diaphragmatic breathing. And your vagus nerve is in charge of rest and digest. It counteracts the fight or flight response system, puts your body in a state of readiness, and it helps manage your blood pressure. It also, and maybe the most important part, it helps to sync your mind and body together. And so it helps you to perform at your best. And that's why the vagus nerve being activated is so important, because when you're stressed out, it's going to bring you back down. And so this tool or this style of breathing activates the vagus nerve, and then the vagus nerve, which runs throughout your organs and your chest and all the organs within your system, and then promotes all this great stuff that we need to have to perform at our best. So it's a powerful, powerful skill. And in fact, it helps us find our individual zone of optimal functioning. So what that is, it's a graph. So let me actually first describe to you what you're seeing here. On the left-hand side, we have performance. At the bottom of that arrow would be like a low performance. And at the top of the arrow would be a high performance. And then at the bottom, we have energy activation. Now on the left-hand side of that arrow, it would be low energy. And then on the right side, it would be high energy, okay? Now, when I'm referring to energy activation, I'm referring to three things here. First is your physiology, right? So what's your body doing? High or low energy activation physiology, your physiology, sorry, get a little tongue-tied. Your physiology, when you're low energy activation would be low heart rate, feeling drowsy, tired, and whatnot. Too much energy would probably be your heart pounding, right? And your mind racing. So in between those two, if you look at the graph, when your energy level gets to a certain point, this is where you're going to have the perfect amount of energy. So let me use an example. Let's say we'll talk about going to hit, or playing baseball. So as you're batting, if you have too little energy, you're not going to be nearly as focused. Your attention might be on something else. If you have too much energy, your heart's probably going to be pounding. Again, your focus and your attention is not going to be on the right thing. So you want to find your individual zone so that you function at your best. So the reason we're talking about this here is because diaphragmatic breathing will help you to find the perfect amount of energy. And that right there becomes extremely valuable. Now, I'll tell you this too. If you look at the graph, it actually slides and moves depending on the person. So one person might perform at their best when they're a little higher energy. And then someone else might perform at their best when they're a little bit low energy. So you have to understand yourself to really understand this graph. When I'm hitting my best, am I high energy or am I low energy? So depending on you and understanding yourself will help you to know what your individual zone of optimal functioning really is.
So Andy, I was going to ask you really quick. Like for me, I was always high energy. I was a high energy player, but I found like I breathe different ways. Like I would take like a long breath in and then quick breath out. And then sometimes I would take long breaths in, long breaths out if I had time to do it. But are you saying like there's one specific way to do it to get into that perfect zone?
That's a great question. And through the research that I've done, because there's a number of different styles that we can breathe, right? We hear some people say, oh, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Or we hear some people say, oh, just breathe with your mouth or just with your nose. For how much time it all changes depending on who you talk to, it seems like. And so there's not really, what I've found is there's not really like a set amount of time and a set style, as long as you have a system to breathe, which we're going to get into.
Right.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Ronnie, you probably have experienced this before, whether it's like, I mean, in your playing days or coaching days, right?
Yeah. It brings to mind when I was in college and we played in the College World Series, and we were going to play in front of 20,000 people. I remember my hitting coach telling me, he says, if you get nervous, take a deep breath and hold it, and then just let it out as slow as you possibly can and see if that helps you. And I remember stepping in the batter's box, my first at bat. I mean, I was nervous, and like Andy said, my heart was pounding, and I just stepped out of the batter's box and I took a deep breath and I held it, and then I let it out real slow. And it was really amazing how calm it got me. And I used it from then on in everyday life. And, again, that's just another style, but it worked for me.
Yeah. I like that you bring that up, because you'll hear people say 4 to 6 seconds in, which is what we'll be talking about. But as long as you have a way to focus in on your breathing or have a system in place, that's where the benefits come from, and activating the diaphragm. So let's talk a little bit about the physical benefits of diaphragmatic breathing, which there are many. So first, you're going to have improves with precision. You're going to be more accurate. You're going to have greater improvement in your motor control or your physical movements. You're going to have faster and more effective reaction time, which becomes all these are extremely valuable with hitting, right? Mental composure. Again, we know composure is important while hitting. And physical agility, being able to make those really quick, fast movements, because your mind and your body are connected in a way that it wouldn't unless you're doing this breathing. So there's so much value in the physical parts of the breathing. So then we have the mental side, which there's, again, several different benefits. So your memory and recall are going to be improved, right? You're going to remember the score. You're going to read the signs more effectively, and game situation. You're going to have the better memory when it comes to those situations. You're going to be more concentration, or you're going to have better concentration, which we know is extremely valuable when hitting and fielding. You're going to be more mentally clear, so mental clarity. You're going to know the next steps and what you need to accomplish. Obviously, focus. And then mental agility, which in baseball, sometimes you got to act and think really, really fast. So the mental agility and physical agility are very closely related. And then mental composure, which again, we know is really valuable in hitting. So you're going to get all of this benefit all by taking those deep diaphragmatic breaths. And it really doesn't take that much time. So let's talk a little bit about...
Andy, can I make a comment really quick?
Yeah.
About what we talked about last, I just see the parallel of what we talked about last week with visualization. You think about visualization, you think about the mental clarity, the concentration, and being able to recall an image in your mind. And then you think about it like the mental agility, the ability to think fast, and how with breathing, how it just augments that concept of visualization. I mean, it's a must to breathe. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. That's a great point, right? Like how visualization and breathing actually play together very well. So let me teach you guys how to do it. So this picture, I really like it because it's a clear picture of what's going on. So you inhale through your mouth or nose. Honestly, from my experience, there's not too big of a difference. But the key here is you want to use your stomach, your lower extremity, to pull out or pull in the air, okay? And then when you blow out, again, you want to use your stomach. And remember that picture before, the diaphragm is located just under your lungs. So you want to feel your actual stomach coming in and out, just like this picture, as you breathe. So there's two main components to this breathing. First, the diaphragm, where you're pulling the air in and out with your lower stomach. Think of it this way: your lungs look like an upside down heart, right? So when you get nervous, oftentimes you start breathing with the top of your lungs, or the top of that heart. So you're not going to get nearly as much air in your lungs. So when we do this, think of it as an upside down heart. You're filling up the bottom part first, the bottom part of your lungs first. Okay, so that's the first component. The second is timing. So for this, we've found that around 4 to 6 seconds in, 4 to 6 seconds out is going to be the most generic amount of time for you to get the benefits. Now, what I mean by that is we're going to practice coming up doing this style of breathing, and maybe 4 seconds feels too short. So you're going to find the most comfortable style of breathing, but it needs to be around 4 to 6 seconds in, 4 to 6 seconds out. And I wrote, if you notice here under timing, it says 4 to 6 seconds or more exhale. So where you get the most benefit in the timing is in the exhale. And the reason is because you're putting less pressure on your heart. And when there's less pressure on your heart, it actually slows your heart down. So there's even that concept of the pressure of your heart. And the reason it slows down is because it's dealing or managing your blood pressure. And so Adam has a great analogy that he's going to share here too.
Well, we kind of had to. Andy was trying to explain this all to Ronnie and I, and Ronnie are like, "What are you talking about? We got to really get like an image. You got to kind of dumb it down for us." But so the best thing that Andy could come up with was when you inhale, there's a lot of tension going on, right? It's like those resistant bands. That's exactly what happens when you inhale, when your belly's coming out. A lot of tension. But then when you exhale, this is where it's very beneficial. Everything just relaxes. And that's where you get a lot of benefit. So Andy, I was going to ask you about, is there a certain part or certain time where the vagus nerve kicks in, or is that just over? When does that kick in? I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
Yeah, so it's the moment your diaphragm starts being activated. So it takes as little as 1 or 2 breaths.
Yeah. Okay.
So it happens pretty much right away. Which is awesome. That's why, like, when you take a deep breath, when you're really nervous and you take that first deep breath, you feel a change in your body. So it starts happening right away.
The vagus nerve.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
It's awesome. All right. So we're going to talk. So we talked about the why and the how. So we'll talk a little bit about when. And so pre-game, obviously it's important. You can do it at home, whatever. You can do it anytime. But for me personally, I would always do it pre-game. And it wasn't long. It wasn't like 20 minutes. It was just 3 to 5 minutes. And that's when I would incorporate that visualization. And I would just be completely focused on what I wanted to accomplish that game. And then obviously when you're breathing, you kind of let everything else go. You're only focused on what your job is, what you want to do on the field that night. So we just wrote down, leave out the distractions in the parking lot. Ronnie, if you want to guide us through this, the hitting and defense breathing.
Yeah, and I think even before, like we're talking about the on deck circle, I challenge a lot of kids the night before when they're going to bed, to visualize. But now, learning more about this diaphragmatic breathing, I think they can go hand in hand. And I know when I was with the Blue Jays, we would have a dark room for our players, right after BP or, 30, 40 minutes before the game, and they'd go in and they'd work on their visualization. What a great opportunity to be able to add the breathing to this part of it. And then on deck circle, I know for years and years, and I still do it to this day, I talk to guys about, if you're getting nervous on deck, you do everything slow motion. Instead of lifting, trying to get the weight and trying to feel your bat light, just try to feel yourself going slow motion. And what better place again than to connect the diaphragmatic breathing during this time. And as you're walking up to the batter's box, take your time, be slower than you normally are. And I think that will kind of diffuse things as well and be able to make you more aware of your breathing. And as you go through, same thing with your little routine, getting in and out of the batter's box. And I think the more you practice it and do it, the more it becomes a habit and you start feeling the effects like Andy's talking about, where instantly you feel it in your body.
Yeah. Roddy, you work with a lot of young kids right now too.
Right.
Like, do you notice, like, they come in the cage and they just kind of get the reps in and get out, like without even breathe, like without taking like a deliberate breath, right? They just kind of like, it's all like one motion, right?
Yeah. And again, inadvertently, we try to go 5 swings at a time. So after the 5th swing, I make them get out of the batter's box. And funny, just thinking and just visualize, or just going back and trying to remember, majority of the kids take a deep breath and then they get back in and get set to go hit again. So great time to be able to do that for players, whether it's 5 swings, whether it's 3 swings, and become a routine, a habit.
A habit. No, I love it, man. The habit. I got a story about when I was playing. There's a pitch, Mark Burley. I'm sure a lot of you guys heard of Mark Burley, threw a perfect game, but outstanding left-handed pitcher, loved to work super fast. And so for me, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let him rush me. I'm stepping out. I'm taking my 1 or 2 breaths before I get back in the box. And there's a lot of times where he would like throw up his arms in the air He's like, come on. Like I would hear him a couple of times. He got vocal. He's like, come on, get in the box. You know, like, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to rush this. It was really important to me. And that's when I was hitting well. And then obviously fielding or some pitchers. I know there's probably some pitchers on here tonight. When to do this in between pitches, or if you get a tough call, you know, whether it's a tough call when you're hitting or a tough call, not getting your strike as a pitcher, you know, take a breath, walk around the mound. And then obviously between innings is a good time to do it too. All right, now Andy, this is where Andy shines right here. Andy's gonna walk us through. We're actually gonna do this. He's gonna walk us through this 3 minute of diaphragmatic breathing. So Andy, if you want to.
Yes.
Do.
So diaphragmatic breathing's a reset too, kind of touching on what both of you said, that it's a really awesome skill for resetting your mind. So it's so physical, but it's also so mental, which is why diaphragmatic breathing is so valuable for any athlete, really. So let's walk through 3 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing. And so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna count for you. We're gonna do 5 breaths, and we're gonna breathe for inhale 5 seconds, and then exhale for 5 seconds. Okay, so that'll be about a 10 seconds per breath. So I'm gonna go for about 5, so it'll be just under a minute, and then I'm gonna let you all just breathe on your own. And when you do, remember, find your perfect cadence. So find your perfect timing, because for some of you, it might be around 5 seconds, might be closer to 6. And remember, equal to or more time breathing out. Okay. So the 2 components, around 4 to 6 seconds in, 4 to 6 seconds out or more. And the other component is use your diaphragm, use your stomach or your belly to pull the air in. Okay. So, all right, get comfortable, uncross your legs. Remember, you can do this diaphragmatic breathing at least while you're on the on deck circle when you're right about to hit. So you don't have to necessarily get comfortable, but I think for this exercise, it might be beneficial. So put one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach. And so as we breathe, you want your top hand on your chest to move very little. It might move a little, but not very much. And you want your bottom hand is what's going to be moving, because as you pull the air in, it fills your stomach up and comes back and forth. So just under your ribs, you're going to feel that hand coming in and out. And that's how you know the diaphragm is being activated. Okay. So you'll feel your muscles, and it might take a few breaths to really get the rhythm of it. So let's go ahead and I'll start counting for you. Remember, I'll count for about a minute or a little less, and then continue to breathe for 2 more minutes. All right, let's get started. All right, breathe in 2, 3, 4, 5. Out 2, 3, 4, 5. In 2, 3, 4, 5. Out 2, 3, 4, 5. In 2, 3, 4, 5. Out 2, 3, 4, 5. In 2, 3, 4, 5. Out 2, 3, 4, 5. In 2, 3, 4, 5. Out 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, continue doing the breathing. Remember to pull the air in with your diaphragm or your belly and push it out with your stomach, and find your right cadence. So if 5 seconds felt too fast, maybe slow that breathing down a little bit more. Just continue to engage in your diaphragm and find your perfect cadence for time in and time out. Gonna go for another minute or so. Find that most comfortable breathing. All right, I'm gonna bring you guys back. So that's diaphragmatic breathing. It's a powerful, powerful tool. And the more practice you use or do it, the more you use diaphragmatic breathing, the more it will be there when you need it. And so I'd suggest anytime you feel you're stressed, do the breathing. Anytime you're about to go swing, I would even suggest take one deep diaphragmatic breath, then go swing. It's going to get your mind and body connected and synced so that you can perform at your best. And I was talking to Adam and Ronnie about this earlier, how we've really touched just the tip of the iceberg on diaphragmatic breathing. There's so many benefits to it, and it will only help your game.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's a fantastic feeling, just that feeling of being relaxed and focused. We got a comment from Chris saying that it was breathing from the mouth was easier than breathing from the nose. So it's like there's no right style, right? It's whatever's going to put you into the right mindset, right?
Yeah, and that's from my experience. That is this what free divers do? I see that question. Actually, yes. Free divers go 6 seconds in and 12 seconds out. And so that, because I've actually taken some free diving classes, so they double the time out, because that's where you get the benefit of really slowing the heart rate down. But what we just did will give you the benefit of the physical side, so the physiological side, the attention side, and the mental side.
And while I was doing that, my mind kind of wandered, and what was it? The rest and digest. That's like one of the benefits that was listed. I was thinking about that, like, and it's completely outside of baseball. Maybe it goes into like nutrition, but like, does it really help? Like, you digest your food, like when you breathe, or is that just kind of like crazy for thinking that?
No, you're crazy. No, so yes, when your body naturally does this rest and digest, otherwise you wouldn't fall asleep or digest your food, right? So when you're doing this diaphragmatic breathing and you're going to say hit, like, no, your body's not going to start resting and digesting. It's just one of the benefits to it. And that can actually be really beneficial when you spend longer amounts of time doing diaphragmatic breathing to help you with that system.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So we're just going to open it up for discussion. You guys, we have, well, Todd, I think you just asked a question in the chat, but if you guys want to ask questions in the chat, or if you guys want to unmute yourselves, feel free. We're just going to have a discussion to learn. We're excited to learn a lot from you guys. So Todd, let me read your question. If you breathe in for 5 and out for 10, will that help relax you faster?
So knowing everything I know about breathing, I would say probably. And the reason I say that is because where you get the real benefit is when you're breathing out. But because that's when you put less pressure on your heart, it's like your whole system has less pressure, so your heart will slow down. So will you actually relax faster? I guess I should say I don't know. I'm not for sure, but I would test it out, right? Like go and figure out what style of breathing will work best for you, because we all have a different system. And that's what I hope you get out of this is go figure out what type of breathing works best for you.
And to his follow-up question was, can you relax a bit too much? And that's, Andy, you and I were talking about that, like, because I was a high energy player. I'm like, I feel like if I would breathe too much, I would calm myself down too much, and the fastball would beat me, or I wouldn't be as ready. Like, I don't know, like you can kind of explain what you and I talked about a little bit.
Right. So yes, you can definitely relax too much. But here's the thing is if you're going to bat and you're high energy, this breathing will help you get to that focus and get all those benefits that we talked about. So yes, if you go and you close your eyes and you lay down and you get to the state where you're almost falling asleep right before you bat, like that's not going to help you, like in my opinion. But if you take a deep diaphragmatic breath, it puts you in that state of readiness. So yes, it relaxes you, but more importantly, it puts you in a state of readiness where your body and mind are synced.
Oh, that's good. And then Jack, Jack kind of goes along with what we were talking about, but why just do it for a few minutes, right? Well, you did it, Andy. You did it in your class, right? You did it for, was it for an hour and a half?
Yeah.
Just to get your resting heart rate down, 20 beats per minute went down?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends like what you're trying to do, right? Or what's your task at hand. Is that right?
Totally. So like, let me give you another example. So we talked about at the beginning of this phone call, how I'm about to go right after this call, I'm going to hang up and the waves are giant here. And it's pretty stressful, right? So my energy level keeps getting amped up and it does for about a day before the swell. It just, every single time this happens, it happens to most guys that surf big waves. But when I get off this call, the second I get in my car, I have to drive about 25 minutes. I'm going to be doing this exact same style of breathing until I get to the sand. And then when I get to the sand, I'm going to continue to do this style of breathing for another 2 or 3 minutes. And then I'm going to paddle out. So the reason I do it is do it like that for that amount of time, which ends up being almost a half hour of straight breathing, is because I feel my energy level starting to get high, because it's what I'm about to do is pretty scary. It's like kind of, I don't want to say it's life threatening, but it's scary. And so I use it to keep me at baseline is what I'm saying, I guess.
That's good stuff. Again, if you guys have questions, just put in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself. But Kuz, I was going to kind of, I think you might have just unmuted yourself, but I just kind of want to pick your brain. If you were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to ask Andy if he does this every day and this is part of his, training regimen, just like you get up every morning and brush your teeth. I mean, is this something that, Andy, you incorporate every single day in your life?
So I would say if I did, it would benefit me a ton. Do I use it every single day? No, I don't. Do I use it every time I need it? Yes. So in other words, whenever I feel any type of stress, I start doing this breathing instantly. Because you can tell when you start getting ramped up. If I get if my kids start going crazy, right? Like I know that when my energy level is starting to get higher, I incorporate the breathing. So do I use it every morning I spend 10 minutes doing this breathing? I personally don't. I know there's a lot of benefit in that. Maybe I need to be more motivated to. But every time I experience my energy level coming up, I do this breathing, which ends up being, at least a few times a week. I do this breathing.
So can you turn this thing on instant, or is this something where you need to build a foundation, have a foundation of maybe you find out your breathing technique, and what's right for you, how many seconds inhale and exhale. But is this instant for every human, or do you build up a little foundation first and then work off that foundation?
So for myself, I was really fortunate where when I learned of this breathing, it was in that course where we were breathing for an hour every twice a week, right? So I spent a lot of time and built a foundation really strong, really fast. And so I would say, if I were to suggest to people like how to build that foundation, and so answering your question, yes, I think having a foundation will help you, because it's just like anything. You have a skill, it's a skill. So the better you get at it, the more effective it will be for you.
Sure.
So I would suggest, for around 5 minutes in the morning for a week, do this breathing. I mean, research actually shows that you should, if you do it every single day, it'll make you more productive and get all these benefits. But so yeah, hopefully that helps answer your question.
See, I found that, breathing, like Ronnie, for your College World Series experience, I was the nervous type. And it's like, I always wonder why I was always so nervous, because I trained so hard and I trained to be ready for these pressure situations. Like, I should be ready for this. This is what I trained for. But it's like, I always got nervous. And so I didn't know much about the breathing, but I knew that if I thought about my breathing, that it would take the focus off maybe what I was nervous for, and so it not only took the focus off of me being nervous of, for whatever reason, but I think it also did me a benefit of probably relaxing me and not even knowing it.
Oh, 100%, right? So there's the two components. There's the physical side and then the mental side. And so when you do the breathing, it's actually, when you're doing it really effectively, it's hard to think about anything else, because it forces you to get into the moment. All my attention is on how I'm pulling the air in and how I'm pushing the air out. And so it forces you to be in the moment. And then when you say go to hit, all those other distractions are going to be gone, or at least like managed.
Yeah, exactly. Like almost like that breathing is that distraction, but it's actually a positive, a benefit for a distraction.
Yeah.
Totally.
I deal with a lot of kids that, they deal with the anxiety and the frustration in the past and in the future. I think this is, just like you said, I think this is a great way to get you back in the present. And like you said, we can call it a distraction, because I think it's a good distraction, and just get some back here. And now all of a sudden, okay, now we're ready for whatever we're working to accomplish. So very powerful.
Yeah, that actually reminds me, because one of the benefits, like the reason divers, like people who learn to free dive and hold their breath for long amounts of time, it's all in their breath. It's a skill. So I took this other free diving course where the longest I had ever held my breath was around 2 minutes. I took this course, and in the course, I held my breath for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Wow. And that's when I realized that holding your breath is a skill. If you do take these steps, you will hold your breath a lot longer. And it's through diaphragmatic breathing. So it actually, what it does is puts more oxygen into your bloodstream. And so you're actually getting more oxygen, which that explains how you're able to swing harder. Like when you have more oxygen, you're able to create more power. I mean, look at weightlifters, like Olympian weightlifters. Like breathing is a huge component to be able to lifting heavy weights. And so it's crazy because it's so physical, but it's also extremely mental. There's so many benefits on both sides.
So that's probably really helpful for you when you go out this afternoon to go surf these 30-foot waves. I mean, if you're doing a lot of maybe tumbling in the whitewater, I mean, you need to be able to hold your breath.
100%. Yeah, that's mainly why I do it. Yes, it helps me get my mind right, but mostly it's so that if I fall, or have a 40-foot wave break in front of me, I'll be able to hold my breath.
Well, hopefully you're not tumbling in the white water. Hopefully you're just riding that thing out and I don't know out for the next.
Yeah, it's part of the game. There's risk, and you fall sometimes, and you try your best not to, but it's part of it. So.
And I had a question about like the diaphragm. Obviously, the diaphragm is a muscle, right? And you talk about like the longevity of your breath and how you can hold it. Is it like a muscle, like a bicep, almost like like you lift and it like actually gets a little bit bigger? Like the more you breathe, does it like increase in size? Do you breathe
it gets stronger. So it is a muscle. So that muscle is where you get the benefit from. And I know what you're saying, and I'm not exactly. I don't exactly know what that means. And I feel like I should know that. Like, if it gets stronger, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, what does it look like?
But I believe what it does is it helps to, when your diaphragm is activated or strengthened, you're able to get the benefits more. So maybe that would explain the foundation question that we had earlier. So like building the foundation, so the more you do it, the better you get at it. But yes, I know it is a muscle.
It looks like they're under your rib cage, so you wouldn't be able to see it.
No.
If that was what you were asking, yeah. Like I just Googled
I mean,
it.
I know you can't see it. I'm just saying, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's inside. It's like deep inside. But yeah.
All right, so Will's got a good question. He says, should we swing it on the inhale or the exhale of the breath?
Oh, I do you want to talk about it?
No, you go ahead. I think I got an idea. Go ahead.
So here's something I learned about baseball, and it was A-Rod that used to, Adam, I think we talked about this, how he used to blow the ball out of the park is what I heard he did. So he would take a breath and he would like shoot the ball out. So he would blow it out and visualize himself like blowing it out of the park. And so my understanding is that it's you blow out
on the exhale.
Yeah.
Well, so I went back so there's a lot of pictures of me when I was hitting, and I look like I'm like that one kid in the pit, the little kid in the picture like this, like you won't let it out, like I'm not sure because I'm and maybe anticipating stopping my swing or whatever that energy is I'm creating, I'm stopping my breath. But I thought about the sniper, like, are we hitting in between breaths? Just like he's pulling the trigger, are you hitting your best in between breaths?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Time, right?
I feel like that. I feel
I think that's a toughie. I think that's one of those tough ones. I've seen young hitters hold their breath and it affects their swing. I've seen other hitters hold their breath and it doesn't phase them.
Right.
For me, and I heard that same story from A-Rod. It would make sense that when you're swinging, you should exhale. But again, that's a tough task to be doing when you're facing 93 miles an hour and you're focusing on, that. If you're programmed that way, great. But I just think it's individual.
And I know baseball, there's a ball coming at you, but Greg's the women's golf coach at Oklahoma State. And I just with the ball, and I got to work on my golf swing, by the way, Greg. But when the ball's sitting on the tee, what do you get? What do you teach golfers? Do you teach on the inhale, exhale, or in between?
That's a good question. I'll tell you, I've never thought about it, and I've never talked to any of our players about it, honestly. Everything else that we're talking about right here, I mean, makes just as much sense with golf as it does with baseball, and that's one of the things with a sport like golf, and I'm assuming with baseball, it's the same, that a racing heart rate and tension in a golf swing is going to kill you. And so when we talk about routines, and a pre-shot routine is extremely important in golf, and I'm sure it is in baseball, and especially maybe with pitching and batting and that sort of thing. That deep breath is the one thing that we talk about before you get up to the ball, before you get up, take your stance and hit the shot. So all of this is
I think Greg's breaking up. Is he breaking up on your end too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Greg, you're breaking up a little bit. No, that's good insight though, from a different sport, right? And I think, Chris, you made a good comment in the box down here. You want to explain that a little bit? Like, because I kind of did the same.
Yeah, it was, working with high school baseball players, they're often so focused more on the result They're so result driven as opposed to the process leading up to it. And one thing that we constantly remind them and talk to them about before we even go out for practice or anything is just reminding, we do those 4x4 with the breathing and stuff like that before it's, 2 minutes or so, and it just kind of calms everybody and everybody goes. But it's still, we constantly feel that we need to remind them just to kind of stay level and have that foundation. So we have it all over. We've got it painted on the inside of the dugout. It holds the tape up. When I usually put 4 sayings around, you got 4 pieces of tape holding up that lineup, and there's something written on there, and breathe is always one of them. I've told my pitchers, they write it with their finger in the back of the mound just to kind of constantly remind them. And it's just something that's I feel like it slows them down, especially in those high tense situations that baseball, often has, that we've always tell them the team that is the calmest is more often going to come out on top. And the team that panics is often going to be the team that ends up on the losing side. So it's a constant reminder for them just to kind of stay grounded.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I did the same thing in high school. My hat was all tattooed with different sayings, but I remember breathe was right in the middle of that. I put like Sandlot, or I put the initials of my family members, like something like bring you back to that good feeling. And I remember in Louisville, there was a sign out in right center field that said breathe. And my mom actually pointed it out to me. Said, "Hey, you better look at that sign, boy." And I hit horrible for the first 2 months, but that's a different story. Billy, I'm kind of interested. So Billy's the head coach at Western Michigan University, where I went to school. I didn't get to play for Billy. I was a little bit older, but just kind of wonder, like at the college level for baseball, if you guys have, if you want to unmute yourself and share if there's any insight, like with like training, like the mental side or breathing.
We haven't delved into that too much, Adam, but we do the pre-hit and pre-pitch routine, I think, are critical for, balance and a reset to next pitch, one pitch at a time type of thing. But I was going to ask Andy, let me say quick hello to Ronnie. You and I got to speak briefly, but hello, how are you, buddy?
How you doing, man? Good to see you.
But Andy, what about a tip, when you coach some young men that are amped up and you need them to work out of the bullpen, and you can almost see in their body language that the pressure's got a little bit of hold of them, and they're packed with skill, but you don't want to throw them under the bus with paralysis by analysis and cheap sayings like that, but sometimes they're overtaken by that. Without, getting a cot and laying them down in the bullpen because you got condensed timing, could you condense this process and make it helpful, you think, with, because sometimes it's hit by pitch, E6, all of a sudden, hey, go get loose. You don't have time to give them the preparation that maybe they would need.
Yeah, so I would say to that you would probably need to have them practice it beforehand, right? So you have them learn the breathing technique. Like, hey, this is going to help you calm you down. Because if you're in the moment and you're like, okay, you're up. Oh, take a few deep breaths. That skill's not going to be there for them because they haven't learned really the skill. And so I would suggest teaching them, hey, here's how you do the breathing. Spend a few minutes doing it each day. And then if you do that, when you're high strung or when you're really stressed out, that breathing will be there where you only need a few breaths, right? Like, which only takes less than 30 seconds. So I would suggest that you need to prep them before that situation ever happens.
Andy,
so I don't know. No.
Could you tie that into maybe a certain part of their routine? Like for a hitter, as they step out of the batter's box, if, like you're saying, they're practicing it every day. So as they step out, they look at the coach, whether they fix their gloves, but one part of that, and that's that reminder of, hey, breathe, or looking at your bat or clicking your spikes. So tie it into something that they do normally to maybe empower that idea of this diaphragmatic breathing.
Oh, that is 100% right on, right? So in the routine, because it sounded like you use a routine with the players, incorporate breathing, and you'll get the benefit of the breathing. which is that lowered heart rate and managing the stress, at least managing the physiological effects of the stress. Because think of it this way, like, where does stress come from? It comes from your thoughts. And then what happens is those thoughts have a physical reaction in your body, right? So when the physiological things or physiological aspects of the stress start happening, it speeds up your heart rate, you get shaky, sometimes you start sweating, sometimes you start like pacing, your mind kind of starts stressing out, right? So the way to stop that is first control your thoughts. If your players are having really a lot of trouble with controlling their thoughts, go to the breathing. And then that will take control over the physiological effects of the stress. So I would suggest incorporate breathing into the routine, and you'll see a big difference.
I think you're right, Andy. I think if we're hitting golf balls and fielding ground balls and hitting baseballs and, you know, whatever we're doing, we're all trying to maximize our potential, right? And it could be this one thing, our breathing, that could be hindering us, because there could be that one thought in our brain that could maybe just be holding us back just enough to hold us back where we're not maximizing our potential, you know? And I think the breathing, and I keep hearing more and more about this, and I never really incorporated it. You know, I think I did it without knowing I was doing it, but I think it's just another tool to put in the tool bag, you know, that could be maybe the difference, you know.
I got a really cool story that I'd like to share with you guys. So I was teaching about 60 soldiers, and they were infantry soldiers. So these are the guys that go and fight wars, right? They're boots on the ground. They're doing the actual fighting. And this was about 4 years ago. So it was the first time I had taught soldiers diaphragmatic breathing. So I teach them how. And then I have a soldier who is a little older. He was probably been in for 20 years. So this guy's been deployed numerous times. He's been in combat many times. And he says, Andy, can I say something? It was funny because he kind of interrupted me, which I was like, no, please, like, you saying it, like, it means a lot more. He's like, hey, can I say something? I was like, yeah, of course. And he goes to all these soldiers who have probably been in for around 10 years. He's like, I've been in combat, and the thing that saved my life was diaphragmatic breathing. Oh. He's like, I absolutely froze when people started shooting bullets at me. And he said, I remembered that somebody had once told me, hey, take a deep breath. He said he took a deep breath, a few of them, and it totally reset his mind and was able to get in the fight and got out alive. And so I know that's like obviously more extreme than baseball, but it's the same principle, right? That this breathing helps you to reset, and practicing it beforehand is going to be when you get the most benefit. It's powerful stuff. Super powerful.
I mean, there's a lot of the other baseball players on there, but Andy, I feel like I was life and death almost every at bat.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Lyle, I kind of want to hear from you, man. Like, obviously, just kind of player you were, like just like a kind of like an even keeled, steady all the way through. Had a nice long career. About how maybe the mental side of the game, how that was beneficial.
I just listening to everybody and just kind of going back, trying to remember, since it has been a while since I've been actually in the batter's box. But I do remember when I do remember my success stuff, or, you know, my successes, and I was taking a deep breath and I was relaxed. I don't know if that had anything to do with any of this. I mean, I've always felt like I, you know, take that deep breath, and because there's other times where you get the crowd into it and you start hearing that crowd and you start wanting to do too much and you start getting amped up, and that's when everything starts going and you end up swinging at a bad pitch or doing a little bit too much. And then there's other times where you just step out of the box and you kind of take that deep breath. Like I said, I didn't do that on purpose or anything like that, but it was more of just taking that deep breath and stepping in. And it just seemed like it, like I said, Andy was saying, was it would kind of get your focus right kind of thing, and slow everything down. But I remember all of my late inning success stuff I was very relaxed. And then even when you're going good too, you're relaxed. I remember when when you're in a slump or something like that, I'm as tense as could be, and like just worrying about that result and not worrying about just, kind of figuring that stuff off. So I do believe that this has a big part of it. And I wish I was able to be aware of it more than anything. They're just looking back on everything, I was successful when I was relaxed and doing my breathing.
Yeah, and it's for me, like watching from afar, kind of player you were. You just kind of like what you said. You stayed within yourself, and I think that's a cue that coaches give their players almost when it's too late, right? Like they should be saying, "Let's prepare," so you know what it means to stay within yourself, right? Because for me, I was kind of I don't know, kind of sporadic. I would just stay within yourself. I'm gonna breathe harder. I'm gonna what does that mean? You got to prepare yourself. I don't know. That's awesome insight right there, Lyle. Appreciate it, man.
I'll add one more thing too that I've heard throughout this conversation. That is that this isn't a new concept, right? We talked about maybe some stuff you may or may not have known before, but this isn't new stuff, right? This is, hey, I need to breathe to relax. And so I think the cool conversation that we have here is everyone's oh yeah, I actually did that. I just wish I was more intentional about it. And so that's the key is as a player or as a coach, teach yourself or players to be more intentional. Hey, make it part of the process, not just in the game, but in practice. And it'll be there more effectively for you when you need it.
It's awesome, Andy. And I think we're going to sign off on that, and we're going to let you go catch that big wave of yours out in Hawaii.
Woo! Gotcha. I know. I'm all energized. I can feel my heart starting to pound. All right, take some diaphragmatic breaths. But
yeah, get a GoPro or something. We want to be there with you. We're gonna keep the webinar going. You just take.
Yeah.
I just
live.
Want to see the sunshine. I just want to see the sunshine. I don't know where everyone else is at, but I'm up here in the Northwest, and it's cold and miserable. So I'm jealous.
Yeah, Hawaii is the place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about 75 outside. So
knock it off. Knock it off.
Well, thank you guys all so much for being on. Honestly, your participation and always all the support you guys always give us is awesome. So, and then we have another webinar in 2 weeks. Was it the 14th? Or would that be
16th?
16th. Yep. Do the math. Yeah, the 16th. It's gonna be a good one. So, if you can make it, that'd be awesome. If you can bring a friend with you, even better. So. But all right, we'll see you guys hopefully in 2 weeks.
Okay. See ya.
All right, thank you.